Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria, born on December 1, 1949 in Rio Negro, Colombia, is one of the most infamous figures in modern history. Known as the King of Cocaine, Escobar was the founder and leader of the Medellin Cartel, a powerful and ruthless drug trafficking organization that dominated the global cocaine trade in the 1980s and early 1990s. Early life and entry into crime. Escobar grew up in a modest household and showed entrepreneurial skills from a young age. He started his criminal career by engaging in petty crimes, such as selling contraband cigarettes and fake lottery tickets. His ambition and ruthlessness soon led him to the lucrative drug trade. By the mid-1970s, Escobar had established the Medellin Cartel, which quickly became the largest and most powerful drug cartel in the world. The Medellin Cartel and Escobar's empire. Under Escobar's leadership, the Medellin Cartel controlled a significant portion of the cocaine smuggled into the United States. At the height of its power, the cartel was responsible for smuggling 70 to 80 tons of cocaine per month into the U.S., generating billions of dollars in revenue. Escobar's wealth was so immense that he was listed as one of the richest men in the world by Forbes magazine. Escobar's influence extended beyond the drug trade. He used his wealth to gain political power and was elected as an alternate member of the Colombian Congress in 1982. He also engaged in philanthropic activities, building housing for the poor and funding public projects, which earned him a Robin Hood-like image among some Colombians. Violence and terror. Despite his philanthropic efforts, Escobar's reign was marked by extreme violence and terror. He orchestrated numerous assassinations, bombings, and kidnappings to maintain his power and intimidate his enemies. The cartel's violence reached its peak in the late 1980s and early 1990s, leading to thousands of deaths, including those of politicians, judges, journalists, and civilians. Downfall and death. Escobar's criminal activities eventually led to a massive manhunt by Colombian authorities, with support from the United States. In 1991, facing imminent capture, Escobar surrendered to authorities under the condition that he would be housed in a self-built luxury prison known as La Catedral. However, his continued criminal activities from within the prison led to his escape in 1992. The manhunt resumed, and on December 2, 1993, Escobar was tracked down and killed by Colombian National Police in a rooftop shootout in Medellin. His death marked the end of the Medellin cartel's dominance, but the legacy of violence and corruption he left behind continues to affect Colombia to this day. Pablo Escobar's life is a stark reminder of the devastating impact of the drug trade and the lengths to which individuals will go for power and wealth. His story is a complex one, marked by both his ruthless criminal activities and his attempts to win public favor through philanthropy. Ultimately, Escobar's legacy is one of violence, corruption, and the enduring struggle against the global drug trade. Bonnie Elizabeth Parker, born on October 1, 1910 in Rowena, Texas, is one of the most iconic figures in American criminal history. Alongside her partner, Clyde Barrow, she became a symbol of rebellion and romance during the Great Depression. Their story, marked by a series of daring robberies and violent confrontations with law enforcement, has been immortalized in popular culture. Early life and background. Bonnie Parker was born into a modest family. Her father, a bricklayer, died when she was just 4 years old, leaving her mother to raise Bonnie and her 2 siblings alone. Despite these hardships, Bonnie excelled in school and showed a talent for writing poetry. She married Roy Thornton in 1926, but the marriage was short-lived, and they separated before Bonnie met Clyde Barrow. Meeting Clyde Barrow, Bonnie met Clyde Barrow in January 1930, and the two quickly became inseparable. Clyde, already involved in criminal activities, introduced Bonnie to a life of crime. Their partnership began with small-time thefts and quickly escalated to more serious offenses, including bank robberies and murders. The crime spree. During the early 1930s, Bonnie and Clyde, along with their gang, embarked on a notorious crime spree across several states. They robbed banks, small stores, and gas stations, often leaving a trail of violence in their wake. The gang's exploits captured the public's imagination, and Bonnie and Clyde became infamous figures, both feared and romanticized. Bonnie's role in the gang was often downplayed by the media, which portrayed her as a mere accomplice. However, she was an active participant in their criminal activities. Despite her petite stature and youthful appearance, Bonnie was a formidable figure, known for her loyalty to Clyde and her willingness to take risks. The end of the road. The law eventually caught up with Bonnie and Clyde. On May 23, 1934, they were ambushed and killed by a posse of law enforcement officers in Bienville Parish, Louisiana. The couple's violent end only added to their legend, and they were buried in separate cemeteries in Dallas, Texas. Legacy. Bonnie Parker's legacy is a complex one. She is remembered as a symbol of the rebellious spirit of the Great Depression era, a time when many Americans were disillusioned with the government and the economic system. Her life and crimes, along with those of Clyde Barrow, have been the subject of numerous books, films, and songs, cementing their place in American folklore. Despite the romanticized image, it's important to remember the real impact of Bonnie and Clyde's actions. Their crime spree resulted in the deaths of several law enforcement officers and civilians, leaving a trail of grief and loss. Bonnie Parker's story serves as a reminder of the darker side of the American dream and the consequences of a life of crime. Alphonse Gabriel Capone, better known as Al Capone, was one of the most notorious gangsters in American history. Born on January 17, 1899 in Brooklyn, New York, Capone rose to infamy during the Prohibition era as the co-founder and boss of the Chicago outfit. His life and criminal activities have left an indelible mark on American society and law enforcement. Early life and entry into crime. Capone was born to Italian immigrant parents and grew up in a rough neighborhood in Brooklyn. He dropped out of school at the age of 14 after hitting a teacher and soon became involved in gang activities. Capone's early criminal career included working for the notorious 5 Points Gang in New York City, where he honed his skills in smuggling, bootlegging, and other illegal activities. Rise to power. In the early 1920s, Capone moved to Chicago to work for Johnny Torrio, a powerful mob boss. When Torrio was injured in an assassination attempt in 1925, he handed control of his criminal empire to Capone. Under Capone's leadership, the Chicago outfit expanded its operations, dominating the illegal alcohol trade during Prohibition. Capone's organization was involved in various criminal activities, including gambling, prostitution, and racketeering. Capone's ability to bribe law enforcement and politicians allowed him to operate with relative impunity. His wealth and influence grew, and he became a public figure, often seen in expensive suits and driving luxury cars. Despite his criminal activities, Capone was known for his charitable contributions, which helped him gain a Robin Hood-like reputation among some Chicago residents. Violence and the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. Capone's reign was marked by extreme violence. He used brutal tactics to eliminate rivals and maintain control over Chicago's underworld. One of the most infamous incidents associated with Capone was the St. Valentine's Day Massacre on February 14, 1929. Members of Capone's gang, disguised as police officers, executed 7 members of a rival gang led by George "Bugs" Moran. This event shocked the nation and solidified Capone's reputation as a ruthless gangster. Downfall and imprisonment. Despite his criminal empire's success, Capone's downfall began with his conviction for tax evasion in 1931. The federal government, unable to prosecute him for his more violent crimes, used his failure to pay taxes as a means to bring him to justice. Capone was sentenced to 11 years in federal prison and fined $50,000. He served time in several prisons, including the infamous Alcatraz. Capone's health deteriorated during his imprisonment due to syphilis, which he had contracted years earlier. He was released from prison in 1939 and spent the last years of his life in relative obscurity. Capone died on January 25, 1947, at his home in Palm Island, Florida. Legacy. Al Capone's legacy is a complex one. He is remembered as one of the most powerful and feared gangsters in American history, whose criminal activities had a profound impact on law enforcement and organized crime. His life story has been the subject of numerous books, films, and television shows, cementing his place in popular culture. Despite his violent and illegal activities, Capone's ability to manipulate the system and his larger-than-life persona continue to fascinate people to this day.